Surveillance by the NSA. Surveillance conducted by the NSA, National Security Agency, has become one of the most controversial topics regarding civil rights and privacy in the 21st century. Although there were some suspicions about widespread surveillance before, it wasn't until Edward Snowden's revelations in 2013 that the scale and extent of NSA's activities were confirmed. Background and context. Edward Snowden, a former CIA employee and contractor working for the NSA, disclosed a vast amount of secret documents that revealed how the U.S. government, through the NSA, collected data on billions of people worldwide, including U.S. citizens. These documents revealed that the NSA conducted mass surveillance programs, such as PRISM, which allowed the agency direct access to data stored by major technology companies like Google, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft. Surveillance programs. 1. PRISM. Launched in 2007, this program allowed the NSA to obtain data from the servers of major tech companies, including emails, chats, photos, videos, files, and voice calls. Users of these services were unaware of the surveillance, sparking significant privacy concerns. 2. Xkeyscore. This tool enabled the NSA to search nearly all of a user's internet activities in real time, such as emails, social media activity, and browsing history. 3. Upstream. This program allowed the interception of data directly from fiber optic cables and telecommunications infrastructure, through which global internet communications flowed. This enabled the NSA to access vast amounts of data, including message content and metadata, such as the time and location of communications. Consequences of the revelations. Snowden's revelations caused a global scandal. People were shocked that the U.S. government could conduct such extensive surveillance, especially on its citizens, without their consent. This sparked debates about the boundaries of privacy, civil rights, and the government's role in ensuring national security. In response to these revelations, a series of reforms were introduced in the U.S. and other countries to limit the possibilities of mass surveillance. An example is the USA Freedom Act, which restricted the NSA's collection of phone call metadata. Mechanism of surveillance. Technically, NSA surveillance involved tapping into connections and copying all traffic. Data processing centers using remote replication were particularly vulnerable. Most private connections were not encrypted, making them easy targets. The authors of an article in the Washington Post mentioned direct links between the NSA and Google and Yahoo data centers worldwide, allowing direct data interception. The NSA also cooperated with its British counterpart, and in 2008, the U.S. Congress granted the NSA appropriate rights by amending the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA. Under Section 702, the NSA gained the right to compel tech companies to share information about their users. Controversies and public debate. The NSA's activities were justified by the need to combat terrorism and ensure national security. However, many believe that they violate fundamental privacy rights. The debate focuses on where the line between security and privacy should be drawn, and what oversight mechanisms are necessary to prevent future abuses. Edward Snowden's legacy. Edward Snowden remains a controversial figure, a hero to some who exposed illegal government activities, a traitor to others who harmed national security. His revelations changed the way people think about privacy in the digital age, and have permanently shaped the discussion on civil rights in the context of modern technologies. Current situation of Snowden. After disclosing the secret documents, Snowden had to flee the U.S. After a brief stay in Hong Kong, he was stranded in Moscow due to the U.S. government revoking his passport. In Russia, he was granted asylum and later permanent residency. Snowden has lived in Russia for years, avoiding extradition to the U.S. Despite his uncertain situation, he regularly appears at conferences and gives interviews. His activity on Twitter, where he commented on political events, ceased after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. End of surveillance? The topic of surveillance remains relevant, and surveillance technologies have only developed further. The documents revealed by Snowden, despite being over a decade old, are still significant because, since then, the awareness of intelligence agencies and their methods has grown significantly. Programs like PRISM showed the scale of surveillance, which included not only U.S. citizens but also foreigners, including high-ranking officials from other countries. NSA's cooperation with the British GCHQ showed that the surveillance issue is global, and many countries, including Poland, were involved in passing data to U.S. intelligence. What is happening with Edward Snowden now? Edward Snowden has been living in Russia for years. In this country, he received permanent residency, which allows him to avoid capture by U.S. authorities and being brought to trial in the U.S. for espionage and revealing state secrets. Snowden's whereabouts are not disclosed by the Russians. Allegedly, FSB agents are employed to protect him. In recent years, the American has regularly appeared at various conferences worldwide, connecting with participants via the internet. Such lectures and appearances have become a source of income for him, allowing him to live relatively normally despite his uncertain status as a fugitive and a wanted person. Snowden was also very active on Twitter, where he regularly commented on events related to U.S. politics and information about American intelligence services. However, this activity ended with Russia's aggression against Ukraine. Snowden has gone silent, disappearing from Twitter. What is happening with him? Where is Edward Snowden? Before Russian troops attacked Ukraine on February 24, 2022, Snowden tweeted almost daily. After the war broke out, only one tweet appeared on his profile. "I wasn't suspended over a vat of acid, which boils more with every new tweet I make. I've just lost confidence that what I write on this particular topic will be of any use because I misjudged it," Snowden wrote on February 27, 2022. This is his last tweet so far. In mid-March 2022, a lengthy interview with Snowden appeared, which he gave remotely as part of Camp Ethereal 2022, a conference dedicated to cryptocurrencies. This is how Snowden makes a living, by speaking at conferences and lectures. As a result of the disclosure of hundreds of thousands of secret U.S. intelligence documents in 2013, U.S. authorities charged Edward Snowden with revealing state secrets and espionage. He faces up to 30 years in prison for this. He managed to escape punishment, first to Hong Kong, then to Moscow, where he was stranded due to the U.S. government revoking his passport. Later that year, Russia granted Snowden asylum, which was extended in 2017. In 2020, he was granted permanent residency in Russia, and his son, who has Russian citizenship, was born. Snowden has long maintained that he does not cooperate with Russian intelligence services. Is it the end of surveillance? No, the issue of surveillance has not been resolved. On the contrary, it continues to develop. Jacob Appelbaum's doctoral dissertation contains new, previously unknown facts about the actions of U.S. law enforcement and intelligence agencies. It shows the large scale of the U.S. electronic surveillance program and the monitoring of people associated with the administrations of other countries, as well as its citizens and foreigners staying in the country. Although this information can be dated over 10 years ago, it is still significant to the public because surveillance technologies have only developed since then, as has the awareness of intelligence agencies about how the public reacts to such revelations. From the journalist's work, we learn, among other things, that the company Cavium, a processor manufacturer, was placed on the NSA's list of manufacturers that supply equipment suitable for surveillance and data acquisition for electronic intelligence. Cavium is now owned by Marvell, which claims it has never placed any backdoors in its products for use by the intelligence agencies. Appelbaum also writes that Snowden's documents show that the NSA had access to the SORM system used in Russia to intercept communications. These actions are based on Russian Federation law, and the system is used by state services. The U.S., through the NSA, in cooperation with the British Electronic Intelligence Service GCHQ, also compromised the security of key European systems used by services for wiretapping and operational activities. The case involves many countries and manufacturers, and the documents contain specific names of both companies and countries whose systems were compromised. This breach could involve either hacking the systems or gaining access to them through NSA cooperation with someone inside the organization or institution. According to Appelbaum, Snowden's documents also show that among the surveillance targets used in the PRISM program, which was at the center of the whistleblower's revelations, was the Tibetan government in exile. The journalist claims that PRISM was primarily focused on political surveillance rather than counterterrorism, as the American services constantly claimed in the context of this program. The Computer Weekly service writes that Appelbaum's doctoral thesis, like his more than decade-long work on government surveillance in the democratic world, has caused him considerable difficulties, ultimately leading to the journalist residing in Berlin. Why are the new facts important? Primarily because of the new light they shed on NSA activities. It is particularly worth looking into the issue of the Cavium company producing processors. If the NSA placed this company on a list of enterprises that produce equipment enabling effective surveillance at the cryptographic level, it means that backdoors were intentionally introduced, allowing later systematic use, for example, by disrupting the operation of the random number generator, which is a crucial element of the cryptographic system. Such disruptions can occur without the knowledge of those using the equipment. Cavium may not have been aware of the presence of backdoors in its products. Another important issue is that, according to Applebaum, numerous NSA documents concern plans for the agency to regularly exploit hardware and software vulnerabilities to build its own espionage infrastructure, both at the level of component manufacturers and computer programs. Applebaum claims that this information has never been published because journalists with access to these documents fear they will be punished by the judiciary and labeled as traitors if they publish them. Surveillance of the entire theoretically democratic world continues and deepens. Politicians are blackmailed by the collected materials, and then they destroy their countries and citizens, dragging them into senseless conflicts, wars, and poverty. The final stage of surveillance is assassinations, not only by drones but also by falsified accidents, heart attacks, and strokes. The reality is that they represent the interests of blackmailers from overseas.